Article 4. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $62,377 to be used for raises for non-union town and library personnel? If approved, this addition would become part of the annual budget. It's recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Estimated tax impact is 5 cents.
I'll move Article 4.
Okay.
Second.
I have a second. Okay, who will be discussing? Sure.
This is a 3% pay increase for all non-union, seasonal, part-time, per diem, and full-time employees. 63% of this warrant article goes to the first responders. Although the cost of living has increased more than 5.9% in 2022, the Board of Selectmen feel that the employees should be at least receive 3%. Most of the employees in the pool are raising their families and subject to today's economic increases. While other businesses are able to offer sign-on bonuses and large hourly rates, we are behind but are trying to keep up with competitiveness and while continuing to provide town services.
Okay, I recognize the Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Weare Finance Committee unanimously recommends this Article 9-0. Noting current inflation, the committee supports a 3% increase for these employees. The committee expressed concern about the difficulty in hiring and retention at the junior and entry levels. Warrant articles such as Article 5 and 6 this year, and with Parks and Rec and Public Works in previous years, have resulted in a piecemeal approach. The committee encourages the town to look at adjusting this article in the future to consider setting a higher rate for employees and a lower rate for supervisors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All right. Oh,
Brian Campana again. I'm just trying to look for some consistency between the articles. Article 4, if you would allow me, Madam Moderator, to refer to Article 5, it gives an estimated, last sentence, it gives an estimated annual cost. This is for the library raises. That verbiage seems to be absent in Article 4. So I would request whoever the appropriate person is, what is the estimated annual cost? It does say part of the annual budget, but it doesn't give the annual cost.
okay, so you're asking for the estimated annual cost for Article 4.
Right, because typically that type of, and the fire department likewise is consistent with an estimated annual cost.
Okay, so
I'll try to speak a little slower.
Okay.
I do have a number. I can put it out there if I figured it right, just to confirm it or not.
well, I'd like to give the board the opportunity to actually just answer the question.
Sure,
Rather than spitballing. So, okay, can someone answer that?
As far as I understand this, the annual cost is $62,377. Hold on. I don't care, one of you guys.
Yeah, give it to her.
So, this is
Madam, it's typically only a 9-month amount. We've got 3 months missing.
I don't know, I didn't hear what she said.
All right, so as Mr. Campana stated, because we vote in March, the $62,377 is reflective of 9 months. So the annual cost, full bucket with full staffing, is $83,169. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. Does anyone else want to speak to this article? Okay.
Yes, I appreciate that, Chairman Hippler. I came up with 81,000. Your numbers are certainly much more accurate than mine might be, so I appreciate the answer.
Any other discussion on this article? Okay, seeing none, it moves to the ballot as written. I'm teachable. Okay, and I have a second. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration? Okay. Thank you. Article 5. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $6,047 to cover the cost of increasing the hourly wages for the Weare Public Library staff by $1 for each employee? This represents wages, payroll taxes, and New Hampshire system contributions for 9 months. If approved, this addition would become part of the annual budget with an estimated annual cost of $8,060. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, estimated tax impact 5 cents.
I'll move Article 5.
Second.
This article is similar to the warrant article brought forward by the DPW in 2019. This is to adjust the wages of the staff by $1 per hour. This does not include the library director, and this isn't a wage adjustment.
Okay, I recognize the Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Weare Finance Committee recommends this article by a vote of 7 to 2. This raises in addition to the 3% raise in Article 4. The committee supports an additional $1 an hour raise for library staff who are currently paid less than their counterparts in many towns throughout the state. Current pay for 7 of the 8 library staff ranges from approximately $11 per hour to $16 per hour. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion on this article?
Hi, John Lawton. I'd just like to clarify, you stated that that was a 5-cent impact. It's really a half a cent
Half a cent.
impact.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good catch. Okay, seeing no discussion, I'll move to the ballot as written. Article 6. Oh. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration? Okay, thank you. Article 6. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $2,692 to cover the cost of increasing the hourly wages for the returning Parks and Recreation staff by $1 for each employee? This represents wages and payroll taxes for 1 year. If approved, this addition would become part of the annual budget. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, and is that a
2/10.
2/10? Yeah, okay. And so,
Moved.
Second.
So the majority of the employees that work at Chase Park, which is what this is referenced to mainly, are high school students. They're on their summer break. These high school students can easily find jobs in town, surrounding towns that pay much more than what our starting wages are at. This is to help align and return in some of our past employees. An example, this past summer, in 2021, the Chase Park was unable to fully staff a lifeguard on duty. I think we had it for a couple of weeks. I'm going to defer to Janine Lynch, from Parks and Rec Chairman, to speak further on this.
okay, so we're recognizing Janine, if you'd like to go.
Hello. Janine Lynch, Park and Rec Chair. Park is asking for a $1 an hour raise per employee at Chase Park. Working as a gate attendant or supervisor at Chase Park can be a thankless job, often receiving pushback from guests due to boat inspection enforcements, entrance fees, and sometimes turning people away due to a full parking lot. Park would like the increased wages to retain our current trained staff while being competitive with other entry-level jobs in the area. Many of these local positions are starting at between $10.25 and $12.50 an hour. With this $1 increase, 60% of our returning staff would be going from $8 to $9 an hour. $2,500, equaling the over $2,600 with taxes, is calculated by Chase Park being open for approximately 1,000 hours per season, with 2.5 employees working per hour. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognize the Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Weare Finance Committee recommends this article of a vote by a vote of 7-2. This raises in addition to the 3% raise in Article 4. Part-time Parks and Rec positions have traditionally been hard to fill. A similar article passed last year, but it only provided partial relief. This provides an additional hour incentive for returning staff. Thank you.
Richard Butt. I have a question. It sounds like this is applying to personnel, individuals, as opposed to the job itself. I guess I have a question. Is there a wage scale associated with this position within Park and Rec? Because I would think that it just applies to returning employees. Why wouldn't it apply to new employees? Like, if there's a minimum wage for that position, say it's $7, shouldn't that minimum wage be increased to $8 for new employees?
This is to help incentivize returning children, if you will, teenagers. Probably not the right term. It takes a while to train these employees, week or so. That training costs, as you know, it can add up. And if we can't retain these employees, as Ms. Lynch had reported, 60% of these employees are only making $8 an hour. And they can go to Dunkin' Donuts and make more than that. They can go to Market Basket and make more than that. They can work in town. We need to incentivize returning employees.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, on a new hire, is there a minimum wage to hire an employee? Is there a minimum dollar per hour rate to hire a new employee? Is it $7? $6?
There is. I believe it is $8, Ms. Lynch. Is that correct? $8 is a starting rate.
And if you're rewarding individuals, adjusting their salary for current employees, which according to what's written is about 50% of the employees down there, the 50% of new hires, shouldn't they come in at a higher rate as well? Instead of
Again,
$8,
this is to incentivize
should be
returning
$9?
employees, not brand new employees.
Huh?
This is to incentivize employees to return back to Park.
It wouldn't incentivize new employees who want to work there?
This article is written for returning employees.
I know, but well, I think it's wrong. I think it should be written for the job classification. I think if the minimum hourly wage is $8 an hour, it should increase it to $9 an hour.
That is something that can be
equitable,
discussed.
and you should do it now. You should.
Are you
amend the
offering an amendment?
you're going to wait 5 minutes for me to write it out? I think the board should amend that article to include employees. And if there's a minimum $8, it'll be brought up to $9. Thank you.
Luke Drake, Duck Pond Road. So I've been in public service my entire life, almost 40 years. I know many of you up here, including the moderator, in public service. I know several of the board members have been in public service for their entire lives and their careers. And when we do that, we expect that we're not going to generally get a prevailing wage or be that competitive with everyone else. However, look at what we're talking about here. We're talking about $1 to get people to come back. I agree with the previous speaker that it's ridiculous to consider the low wages we're offering these folks to come, because of course they can get jobs anywhere, as has been mentioned and was discussed earlier this week in the school board meetings. And the comparisons to what we're paying our public service folks is terrible. We're spending money, and we heard some of the other discussions. Look at the line items that we're spending money on, the costs of some things that are arguably necessary, but we're willing to pay for things but not the people that do the work that we need them to do all year long. And while I appreciate the increase that's being suggested, we really do need to incentivize people to start at these jobs, continue at these jobs, and have a reason to be public servants, because the reality is mostly what you get for stepping up for this is grief. And we all know that. So I implore the town to at least pass this and seriously consider bringing your wages for your workers up to a living wage. For God's sakes, any of you, try and live on that amount of money. And I know we're talking about kids on this one, but prior to this, we were talking about adults who have to raise families. And we're talking about paying folks in this town wages that you cannot afford a house in this town on. I strongly recommend that the citizens of this town start considering that the people that work for you are the most valuable asset you have, and we're losing them in droves because we would rather pay for things than people. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion?
Sarah Button, 905 River Road. I'd like to propose an amendment to Article 6. I can write it out if you would like, but the change is pretty simple. I would like to strike the word returning before Parks and Recreation. So it would read, shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $2,692 to cover the cost, I suppose that amount would change, to cover the cost of increasing the hourly wages for the Parks and Recreation staff by $1 for each employee. That's it. Yep. Can I sit? I'll sit down to go right. Okay.
Luke Drake, Duck Pond Road, second.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor. Going to wait for it to be written up. So I'm trying to remember it from memory, but if I have it correctly, and we're going to have to consider what the difference is, and I see Beth is furiously calculating. So, but the amendment is to strike the word returning, correct? And so I'm going to read it again, and then we will open that up for discussion. So let me go back and find it. Where am I? 6, right? Okay. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of, to be determined, to cover the costs of increasing the hourly wages for the returning Parks and Recreation, I already struck it wrong. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of to be determined to cover the cost of increasing the hourly wages for Parks and Recreation staff by $1 for each employee? This represents wages and payroll taxes for 1 year. If approved, this addition would become part of the annual budget. I have a point of inquiry, though. It is, do we have a set number of staff for Parks and Rec? Is there a way to determine what the ultimate cost of this would be? It's just a point of inquiry, because I imagine you need that information to be able to calculate what the cost would be.
It varies typically from 20 to 25 staff members. We had 17 last year, including the supervisors and the lifeguard. So it depends on weather. It depends on how many supervisors are there versus trainees. So if we're training new people, the supervisors are going to be on longer training. So
Laura, once the article's written, then you'll review it? Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea, Selectman Van. Why don't we take 5 minutes, 5-minute recess while this is being written out? Oh, I apologize. I'm taking that back. It was a gimme. She's writing as fast as she can. I gotta go walk it over then. Okay, I have it. It's been accepted. So again, the amendment on the floor. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $3,064 to cover the cost of increasing the hourly wages for the Parks and Recreation staff by $1 for each employee? This represents wages and payroll taxes for 1 year. If approved, this addition would become part of the annual budget. So it was, it had been seconded. I believe you got all that information. And so it is open for discussion. I see no discussion. Does the Finance Committee care to speak to this amendment?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is an interesting one. I've got the thumbs up of the committee, and I'd be transparent. They all seem in favor of supporting this, but I can't say that we voted to recommend. I can say in all confidence, we likely will recommend this article and are in support of it.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion?
Clarence Gardner on John Connor Road. I have a general question that applies to all articles like this. When they say becomes part of the annual budget and we're talking about an increase, is that saying the increase happens every year?
Yes. No. Yeah. No. Yes. Maybe.
It's not that there will be a dollar increase every year, but this dollar increase will carry forward in the future years, and because it's being approved by town meeting, it can go in the default budget.
Right. So it'll go up to N, but next year it won't be N plus 1.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a sorta. Okay.
Madam Moderator, question for the Finance Director. Can we have an estimated tax impact, or is it not change? I know we have a new amount that I don't know if it's going to change that 0.2 cents.
Like a half pence? Is that what we're...
We may have to go another decimal point.
She's calculating, and so I will give her that moment. Okay, asked and answered. All right, so seeing no further discussion, the vote on the floor is on the amendment. So all those in favor of amending, oh, they're already up. This is looking like a resounding yes. Okay. Is there anyone opposed? All right, and so it moves as amended. They beat you to it, Maureen. Okay, all those in favor of restricting reconsideration? Okay.